This was not the first time of me telling this story. This has been years. It started me telling this story when my sister passed away. So this is like years of me getting to this point, to this layer. I always stand true by what I said. I always stand true by what happened. And I don't know if there was a right or wrong way, the way I handled it. I don't think that there was. And with what I speak with my therapist with, there was no right or wrong way to tell the story. I just had to.
Something about Ashley's whole situation is throwing straight up confusion into the air, and the deeper I dig, the stranger everything looks. This storyline is bending like one of those late-night drama twists, and every new detail hits even wilder than the last. For years, Ashley kept the same story locked in place. This wasn't some quick moment or a random phase. She stood on her truth for a long time. Same details, same delivery, same energy. Then out of nowhere, she flips the script and suddenly says it wasn't that bad, like the whole situation just shrank overnight. That switch does not sit right at all. You can't hold one version for years and then jump into a whole new lane without folks raising questions. That's not a tiny red flag. That's a whole marching band running down the block with alarms blasting. When someone's testimony suddenly softens after staying rock solid for so long, everyone's gonna wonder what changed behind the scenes. And that's exactly where it gets suspicious. Moves like this don't just fall out of the sky for no reason. It feels like somebody stepped in, somebody applied pressure, somebody wanted this new version pushed out for their own benefit. The timing is too clean, too polished, too convenient, almost like a quiet cover-up trying to slide through the cracks. But here's where things get even messier. If you really look at Ashley and then look at Towanda, like actually study their faces, the similarity is crazy. The features, the angles, the whole bone structure vibe. Ashley almost resembles Towanda more than the woman she calls her biological mother, and that detail is impossible to pretend you don't see. I'm not saying I've got paperwork tucked in my pocket, but that resemblance mixed with all this sudden silence and secretive energy feels way too strange. The whole situation screams, something ain't being said out loud, and it makes everything feel even more suspicious. And there's another question that won't leave my head no matter how much I try to brush it off. Ashley has been talking about this for years, so how come barely anybody heard about it until now? This woman is connected to the Braxton family, one of the most recognized families in the entertainment lane. So why was her voice basically invisible the whole time she was speaking? Her views were low, her reach was almost non-existent, and that makes zero sense considering the circles her family moves in. That had me thinking, was her content pushed down on purpose? Was somebody making sure her story didn't spread? Because that would explain the weird quietness surrounding everything. And just when you think the mystery stops there, the whole thing turns even darker. She's made some serious claims about her father trying to shut her down completely. Not a simple disagreement, not normal family tension, but full-on, don't speak about this again energy, according to her. And when you line all these pieces up, the situation starts looking way bigger than a basic family dispute. Ashley keeps talking about staying true to her voice, refusing to let anybody silence her, and the rumors floating around her story get heavier every single day. There are even whispers that certain people tried to intimidate her, which is unsettling to even picture, especially with how intense everything around her narrative has become. And then comes the part nobody was ready for. Ashley's sister passing away. And ever since that moment, the internet has been running wild with speculation. People are questioning motives, wondering why the family is so guarded, and trying to figure out exactly what they don't want slipping out into the open. This whole situation feels like a puzzle missing half the pieces, and every time a new detail drops, the picture gets even stranger. Now, let me break it down with a simple example because it ties into the whole bigger picture here.
What would the effects of those circumstances be on the younger brothers? Because it would be very difficult for them to, I guess, develop respect towards you and your sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't see eye to eye because the way they see life is very different than the way I've seen it. And so for them, it's hard, which is understandable.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking these things about their mother, these are quite harsh accusations that I'm saying.
Yeah.
And if you were not there to grasp what was happening, then perhaps you'd think and be like, I think this is a little far-fetched.
Yes.
And that was something that was really hard for me.
Imagine you're the one raising your niece. You're getting her dressed, taking her to school, cooking the meals, tucking her into bed at night. When a child grows up with someone doing all the parental things, it's natural for the child to assume that person is the parent. No questions asked. Kids don't dig through paperwork or go hunting for documents, they just trust what they see right in front of them. They follow the person who actually shows up every day. Now, apply that to Ashley's situation. What if she grew up believing one version of her family while the real truth was happening behind the scenes? What if certain details about her parentage were kept quiet, rearranged, or smoothed over before she was even old enough to understand what was really going on? That possibility opens up a whole new layer to this mystery. Then comes the wildest part. Ashley said her mother's name was removed from her birth certificate. Removed! And that's not something you can fix on a random afternoon while running errands. A change like that takes legal steps, signatures, judges, paperwork, serious official moves. So either she was told something as a child that wasn't accurate, or there's a deeper story behind those documents that still hasn't been explained. And this right here is why people keep circling back to the idea that Towanda could possibly be her real mother. The secrecy around the documents, the confusion, the sudden shifts, it all feels like there's a bigger truth hiding somewhere in the background. Nothing about this situation is straightforward, and that alone is suspicious. But it doesn't even stop there. Ashley recently mentioned having brothers for the first time, completely out of nowhere. She says she has brothers, and that single detail flips the whole timeline upside down. Who are these brothers? And why have they never been part of the conversation until now? That alone raises huge questions about hidden family members, strange family dynamics, and gaps in the story that nobody caught before. The more you dig into Ashley's upbringing, the deeper the mystery gets. Almost like the truth has been wrapped in layers for years. And when you zoom out, you see it's not just Ashley dealing with these issues. There have been long-standing allegations of mistreatment within the Braxton family in general. Tamar has opened up about her own experiences, Ashley has accused her father of serious misconduct, and then there's Gabe, whose situation brings in a whole extra set of questions and drama. This whole story keeps unraveling in ways that catch everybody completely off guard, and every new piece that drops makes it feel like the truth is still hiding behind yet another locked door. And then you have Gabe, Trina's ex, wrapped up in his own messy situations, which adds even more layers to this already complicated family picture. When you line everything up, it stops looking like random events and starts looking like a repeating pattern. And that pattern definitely doesn't paint the picture.
It may not be your family, and that is totally okay. I am an example of that. You may not get support from your family, and that is totally fine. You still have the right to use your voice. You still have the right to talk. You still have the right to say how you feel. The world will try to silence you. People will try to silence you, but the world needs your voice and not.
But here's the part that hits the hardest. After years of being straightforward and open about what she says she went through, Ashley suddenly starts minimizing everything like it wasn't serious. That shift is wild because someone who's been consistent and steady with their story doesn't just wake up one morning and decide the whole thing wasn't a big deal. Not unless something around them changed in a major way. When you see someone soften their own truth out of nowhere, it usually means something, or someone. Push them into it. Healing never requires you to erase your own experience. Healing does not ask you to rewrite your past into something lighter just to make people around you feel comfortable. So if her whole message flipped this fast, you can't help but wonder who influenced that switch. Now let's tap into the childhood memory angle for a second because it matters here. Everybody knows early memories fade, and the adults around you can easily shape the version of the story you grow up believing. If someone keeps telling you the same corrected version over and over, eventually that becomes your truth, even if it's not the real one. So it's totally possible Ashley grew up hearing stories that weren't accurate, and those stories shaped the way she understood her entire background. If she was fed the wrong information, that would explain the confusion she keeps uncovering, especially when it comes to the paperwork situation that keeps popping up. It keeps circling back because it's way too strange to ignore. Changing a birth certificate isn't something you fix with one signature. It's a whole legal process with serious steps, approvals, and official paperwork. That means either Ashley misunderstood what happened when she was younger, or something behind the scenes wasn't as straightforward as she thought it was. And this is exactly why people keep revisiting the theory about Towanda possibly being her real mother. If Towanda were the actual parent, it would explain the secrecy, the confusion, and all the document questions nobody seems able to answer clearly. But there's one detail that makes the whole situation even more intense. Ashley physically resembles Towanda in a way that's impossible to overlook. And I'm talking heavy resemblance, face shape, features, the whole presence. The kind of similarity that makes you stop and stare because it doesn't match the official story at all. Meanwhile, Towanda's own daughter doesn't resemble her nearly as much as Ashley does, and that contrast is loud. When someone outside the official mother-daughter relationship looks more like the parent than the actual child, it raises major questions. And those questions aren't small. Then Towanda Braxton stepped in publicly saying the whole family was surprised by Ashley's statements. Surprised! That one word adds another twist because how is all of this brand new information to everyone except Ashley? What really throws the whole situation into chaos is the simple fact that Ashley's videos have been online for years. So hearing Towanda act shocked does not line up with reality. Either Towanda is trying to protect the family's polished image, or the family straight up chose not to acknowledge Ashley's cries for help. And neither option sits right at all. Both versions paint a picture of serious avoidance, and Towanda's response felt almost scripted, like somebody trying to steer the narrative instead of dealing with what's actually being said. Acting like all this came out of nowhere makes zero sense when Ashley has been speaking on the same subject for years. It almost feels like the goal was to downplay her words, redirect the spotlight, or make the public second-guess her. And then we have the situation with the documents. Ashley mentioned that her father's wife, her stepmother, supposedly added her own name to the birth certificate, but that's not something anyone can just do, like adjusting a file on a laptop. A birth certificate isn't something you casually edit. It takes legal steps, judges, hearings, and official paperwork, not quick changes made at home while sitting on the couch. So that raises another possibility. Maybe someone told Ashley this story when she was a kid and she believed it because she had no reason not to. And if she was fed misinformation like that, it hints at a bigger pattern of confusion around her childhood. Almost like the truth was being reshaped before she was old enough to question anything. Here's one thing that stands firm. Ashley's pain is coming from a very real place. Even if some details got tangled over time, trauma can twist memory and people around you can twist information. But the emotion behind it doesn't fade just because the facts got messy. And the sheer amount of conflicting stories floating around raises one major question. Why is there so much confusion if nothing is being hidden? Then Ashley mentioned two half-brothers, brothers nobody in the public had ever heard about before. And if they share a parent with her, that points right back to Michael. So who are these brothers? Why have they never been acknowledged? Why does this family tree keep growing new branches nobody knew existed until Ashley spoke up? It makes everything look like certain pieces were kept out of sight on purpose. Some people have even said that Michael might be trying to quiet Ashley through legal pressure, like possible cease and desist letters. Though nothing like that has ever been publicly confirmed. But if a rumor even leans close to the truth, you have to ask, what would someone be trying that hard to hide? And the theory that keeps resurfacing is that Towanda and Michael could both be Ashley's parents, a twist that would flip the family's whole public image upside down. If that theory were true, it would explain the secrecy, the strange silences, the inconsistencies, and the guarded reactions. A situation like that would shake their reputation to the core, and the family would have every reason to bury the truth as deep as possible. And speaking of reputation, let's talk about how this family moves when the cameras are rolling versus what seems to be happening behind closed doors. The contrast is wild, and it only makes the mystery around Ashley's story even more intense. The Braxton family built their whole brand on full transparency. All access, dramatic confessionals, emotional moments, nothing off limits. But the moment you look behind that polished reality TV curtain, everything starts feeling guarded, controlled, and carefully managed. They pick the storyline, they pick the angles, and they pick the version of themselves they want the world to believe. And that right there is why Ashley's situation stands out so sharply. Her story doesn't fit into the family's neatly crafted image at all. And now these half-brothers Ashley mentioned, brothers the public never knew existed, have thrown even more confusion into the mix. The fact that this has now been confirmed makes the whole family history feel deeper and way more complicated than anyone realized. It leaves people wondering what else might be tucked away behind those closed doors. Because if major family members were never spoken about until now, what other details were left sitting in the shadows? So here's the question buzzing like a loud alarm. Why is Ashley suddenly shrinking her story after being so firm for so long?
Were they part of the package or did they come along later?
They came along later.
Okay.
So my sister is 3 years younger than I am. My oldest younger brother is 4 years. And then after that, it's 8 years.
Okay.
So they came after. And it's unfortunate that even now we don't have a relationship because you were just pit against each other.
Yeah.
So the household was like all for one and one for all. You better guard up.
Wow.
And it's not really healthy.
No, definitely not. No. I was wondering, like, what would that...
When someone stays consistent about their trauma and then suddenly switches to, it wasn't that bad, that shift hits different. It feels like outside pressure, like someone convincing her to dial it back, soften it up, and erase the weight from her own truth. From the outside, it looks like an attempt to make everything look neat and unthreatening again. Almost like minimizing her experience would make the whole situation easier for certain people around her. But a reversal that sudden doesn't come from healing. Healing doesn't require pretending nothing happened or smoothing your story just to keep the peace. Moves like this feel way less like healing and way more like someone stepping in, someone pushing influence, someone trying to reshape the whole narrative before it pulls too much attention. And when you line everything up, the secrecy around the documents, the strange gaps in Ashley's childhood memories, the half-brothers nobody ever knew existed, and the way her story keeps shifting, the final theory people keep circling back to gets impossible to ignore. Could Towanda actually be Ashley's real mother? Look at the clues, the contradictions, the hidden family details, the confusion around the paperwork, the emotional distance, the protective behavior, and that physical resemblance that has everybody doing double takes. Ashley looks more like Towanda than almost anyone else in that family, and the resemblance is so strong that even people who don't follow celebrity news spotted it instantly. And that's why the question refuses to disappear. Because when you lay everything side by side, the possibility doesn't feel random at all. It feels like a theory built from details that were never supposed to connect, suddenly lining up in a way that demands attention. And if the family really is managing this story behind the scenes, then Ashley's sudden softness makes perfect sense, because someone might be pushing her to keep certain truths buried where the cameras can't reach. And until these contradictions get addressed publicly, this one question is going to keep echoing louder and louder in every conversation tied to this whole situation. What really turns this whole situation into a maze is how every time a new detail surfaces, it unlocks more questions instead of answers. The deeper people dig, the more contradictions pop up. Almost like different family members are living inside different versions of the same timeline. And that's wild when you think about how close-knit they always act on camera. One thing that keeps coming up is how this family handles anything uncomfortable. There's a pattern: closing ranks, going silent, and presenting a united front even when the behind-the-scenes reality does not match the picture they're selling to the public. And when it comes to Ashley, that silence hits even louder because she's been speaking for years, while the family only recently started addressing anything at all. It creates this strange gap between what she says happened and what the family chooses to publicly acknowledge. Almost like two different worlds running side by side. Her truth versus their version of the story. Now, the people have also started paying attention to the way certain family members interact online, or don't interact at all. It's interesting. Ashley's name barely ever shows up in their public conversations, their interviews, their posts. Nothing. It's almost like she was never part of the bigger picture, and that kind of absence stands out in a major way. Especially when this family is known for being loud, emotional, expressive, and dramatic about everything else they go through. So staying silent about her, that silence hits different. And then there's another angle that's been gaining serious traction. The idea that Ashley's sudden shift in tone might not just be about pressure, but straight up exhaustion. When someone fights for years without support, without amplification, and without real validation, it can wear anybody down. Exhaustion can make a person decide to stop pushing a story that keeps getting dismissed or twisted, even if the truth behind it still hurts like crazy. The timing of her shift has people wondering whether she hit a breaking point rather than finding a real resolution. Another thing adding heat to the conversation is the timeline of family events. When people map out the milestones, the relationships, the The separations, the children being born, the personal struggles. It creates a picture that leaves room for even more questions. Not because anyone is accusing anybody of anything, but because the years don't always line up neatly with the explanations given. And inconsistencies like that make people look way closer, especially when secrecy is already part of the conversation. There's also speculation about the emotional dynamics between certain family members. Who protects who distances themselves, who acts defensive, who goes quiet, who shows support, and who avoids the topic completely. Patterns like that can reveal more than direct statements ever could. And right now, those behaviors are sparking even more theories about what might be happening behind closed doors. And the more these discussions grow, the more people are re-examining old moments from the family's interviews, shows, and public appearances, trying to spot signs they missed the first time around. Not because those old clips prove anything on their own, but because people are hunting for clues, tiny reactions, small slips, little moments that might make more sense now with the context Ashley has shared. It's like everyone is replaying old footage with brand new eyes, trying to connect dots that were invisible before. This situation keeps expanding, and every new angle brings fresh layers that make the whole story even more complicated. The truth behind all of this still feels buried, and the public is more invested than ever in figuring out how all these pieces actually fit together. When you line up everything we've talked about, the puzzle starts forming a picture that's getting harder and harder to ignore. I'm not saying this theory is confirmed, but the way these pieces lock together makes the possibility feel way too real to brush off. If the truth turns out to be what people are suspecting, it would finally make sense of all the confusion, the whispers, the missing documents, the strange family distance, and Ashley's sudden shift in tone that came out of nowhere. Think about it. If something bigger has been kept under wraps for years, it would explain the emotional tension, the mixed reactions, and why certain topics feel off limits whenever the family steps in front of a camera. It would also explain why Ashley's story stayed quiet for so long, even though she was speaking loud and clear the whole time. It's like the more you analyze the pattern, the more the pattern looks right back at you. And that brings everything back to the question people cannot stop asking. Could Towanda actually be connected to Ashley in a deeper way than the public was ever told? Could there be real reasons the family wants that timeline to stay blurry? And is Ashley stepping back from her story because she truly wants to? Or because someone behind the scenes is nudging her to calm everything down? These aren't small questions. These are the kind of questions that change how you see the entire situation. Right now, the public is torn between two possibilities. Either Ashley is exhausted from fighting this battle alone, or she's being influenced to keep certain details quiet. Either way, her sudden switch does not feel random. It feels like something shifted behind the curtain, and we're only getting a tiny glimpse of the surface. What makes all this even more intense is how the family's reactions keep clashing with what Ashley has said. Every statement, every little body language moment, every surprised response ends up raising even more eyebrows instead of clearing things up. And the more people revisit old footage, old interviews, old family moments, the more everything starts looking different under this new light. At this point, I want to hear what you think, because your perspective might connect dots none of us have noticed yet. Does this theory make sense to you? Do you think something deeper is happening behind the scenes? Or do you feel like Ashley is stepping back for reasons none of us fully understand yet? Drop your thoughts, your theories, your takes in the comments. Conversations like this help shine light on situations that have been sitting in the dark for way too long. And listen, if you're into celebrity drama, hidden family dynamics, and stories that twist with every new detail, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. I've got another video popping up on your screen in just a second, and trust me, you do not want to skip it. Click the next one for even more wild celebrity drama, because this story is far from over, and the next video takes everything to another level.